So in this game, I usually fight for order and the greater good. But even a good little elven boy like me can be blinded by beauty.
You are my playthings.
I know, alright? I just did a video about me hating chaos so much I wiped them all out. But still, like I said, even I can be blinded by beauty. So today I am stepping into the lovely, seductive shoes of Azazel, the Prince of Damnation.
The attention's all on me.
And usually in these videos I have the goals of completing the short, long and ultimate victory conditions, but not today. Because as long as I'm breaking my own moral code playing this beautifully vile creature, I might as well break my own campaign rules and truly embrace chaos. So, our goal is actually a lot more simple today. Slay and seduce the empires of man. And as luck would have it, that is exactly where Azazel's story begins. We are faced with a man, Rastiltin Bebchuk, of the Brotherhood of the Bear. But that's enough talking. Let's get fighting. And besides Azazel himself, we were accompanied by a few bands of Slaanesh Marauders, Chaos Warriors of Slaanesh, and Chosen of Slaanesh. Now again, I'm a pretty enthusiastic Chaos opposer, but I gotta say, these Chosen and Chaos Warriors look pretty fucking cool. We also have these Hell Striders, which are like violent anteaters, a feral manticore, and of course, our starting hero, a Glixus. Now Azazel, being pretty fast, rushed straight in, diving down on Rastiltin, giving his accompanying Kossars a very satisfying crack of the whip. And it didn't take long before my warriors of chaos caught up, smashing into the Kistalites, and with ferocious lust, we struck down all the men, including Rastiltin himself. The battle was won. Now, we don't actually start with any settlements as Azazel, so I made him even faster before attacking the men of the Tower of Kruk, which again was another pretty easy fight, an orgy of violence, where I got to properly use the Hell Scourges as they have vanguard deployment, charging straight into some Kossars. Beautiful. So now that the garrison of the Tower of Kruk was pretty annihilated, I occupied the settlement, which was actually also a dark fortress. And these dark fortresses can be constructed in some settlements, and as far as I can tell, are really the only settlements to worry about. And by taking this and making it my dark, twisted fortress, I also gained a vassal for some reason, this Norscan tribe, which, strange, but you know, I cannot deny them my beauty. Also, by slaying all these Kistalites, we have now also acquired some souls. Now, I'm not actually sure I fully get how all this chaos stuff works, but essentially the souls are like an additional currency on top of our normal, weird eyeball money that could be sacrificed to the gods of chaos in exchange for faction boosts or gifted units. And we already had like 2,000 souls, so I got the gift of Prophet of Pleasure and the Ruinous Bullock for extra missile resistance and the ability to shatter walls and siege equipment during siege battles. Pretty good stuff. So with these handy, seductive boosts, we marched on the Bay of Blades, the final settlement of the Brotherhood of the Bear, wiping them out. The first faction of mankind had fallen. Now that I had a little bit of a foothold, I was looking around and I didn't really like what I saw, because there were all these masterless Norscan tribes held up in the mountains, which obviously needs fixing. So we moved on the tribe of Scaling, attacking Carlos, who was pretty far from being a dangerous foe, and we won decisively. I then picked up some trolls before moving on the faction leader of Scaling, Felman Ingerson. Felman was looking like he was going to be a slightly bigger challenge for Azazel and his Chaos crew, but thankfully, Azazel is extremely attractive. So I seduced 100 of Felman's berserkers, convincing them to join our cause before facing Felman on a frozen river. As usual, we charged them head-on, slashing, smashing, and crushing unit after unit, until Felman himself was wounded, winning the battle. And after Felman, fell, I went and took the Altar of the Crimson Harvest, a new Dark Fortress site, and was also able to recruit some aspiring champions. However, my warmongering had ruffled some feathers, and eventually we caught the attention of Wulfric the Wanderer. Mr. Norska himself, who wasn't exactly a huge fan of me putting a claim on his lands. I also had no clue how strong Wulfric was at this point, as I never usually face him this early in a campaign, so being a little worried about my capital, I recruited a second lord, Hyvold Chimerax, to keep the Tower of Krok safe. And Wulfric was actually a lot closer than I thought, and was raiding my lands, which I obviously could not let slide, so we attacked. Which led to the Battle of the Altar of the Crimson Harvest, or as it came to be known, the Battle for Norska. Now, in addition to huge numbers of berserkers and marauders, Wulfric also had plenty of beasts within his ranks: Chaos Warhounds, a mammoth, and the great Moorherd of Bloodfjord, which is 5 mammoths. And although my Slaneshi warriors are pretty sick looking with lots of cool armor, a herd of mammoths is still pretty deadly. But luckily I was able to afford to seduce at least a single mammoth before the fight, evening the odds a little. I now also picked up 2 units of aspiring champions, a unit of fiends of Slanesh, and also gotten an exalted hero, Krom. My trolls and mammoth slammed into Wulfric's forces, disrupting their formations, while Krom and Eglixis went in on the right flank, throwing down spells and dominating the marauders. And Azazel went Wulfric hunting. My fiends and hell scourges were also pretty helpful, wreaking havoc on the left flank coming out of the woods, and 5 bloody minutes later, the battle was won. But I made sure Azazel got to slay Wulfric, and that the herd of Bloodfjord was wiped out. So at this point, my actions against the Norskans had drawn the attention of Slanesh, and I was given the choice of a reward, which I bestowed upon my fortresses, giving me a Hell Cannon and 4 units of Chaos Furies. Slanesh was pleased, Norska was well underway to being part of my ecstatic legions, and our adventure was off to a good start. So after slaying his mammoth and beating Wulfric, I sent Hyvold to deal with the rest of Wulfric's faction. Because just as we had drawn the attention of Slanesh, something else had drawn mine. Something disgusting and nowhere near as beautiful as us. Skaven. More specifically, Throt the Unclean.
Experiment, yes?
Throt wasn't necessarily a threat to us, but I didn't really like how he was moving in on Kislev. I'm the evil one in this campaign, and I'll have no rat outscoring me. And while Azazel was getting ready for pest control, Hyvold kept grinding through what was left of Wulfric's armies and settlements, eventually putting our total of slain enemies above 3,000. Which granted me a new hero, Harold Hammerstorm. With Harold by my side, I was feeling pretty ready to deal with Throt, so I marched into Kislev lands to what certainly were not ruins, declaring war on Clan Moldar and attacking Fort Stragov. And not long after we had reached the Hell Pit, Throt's breeding ground and capital. Now the gods didn't believe in us, predicting a close defeat. I don't think so. We had aspiring champions, chosen and warriors of Slanesh, fiends, trolls, Eglixis, Krom, Azazel, and all of them armed to the teeth and lusting for slaughter. So we launched our assault. Yeah, okay, so maybe I was a little bit too confident, and maybe I once again underestimated Skaven. So maybe I had to retreat with my twin snake tail between my legs. We did have some good news at this stage though, because Wulfric had long looked upon our beautiful faces, and well, also suffered a lot of severe defeats, so he was ready to be wined, dined, and subjugated. Despite our Norscan triumph, I couldn't let Throt just walk away after degrading and humiliating me. Again, that's like my job. So I went ahead with the newly unlocked quest battle for the Demon Blade, which, to my horror, wasn't just against high elves, but also wood elves. Like, that's doubly gruesome. This battle was actually, like, genuinely upsetting, and Azazel's speech didn't exactly help.
Little elven souls to be plucked like ripe fruit.
Yeah, I'm definitely making an elf video after this. Horrific war crimes aside, we unfortunately won the battle, claiming the Demon Blade, which buffs our weapon strength, melee attack, makes us even more irresistible, and gives us the Demon Blade ability. Very nice. So with the Demon Blade by our side, a new fresh army, and a couple levels up, we once again marched in on the rats, this time attacking Erengrad. Chrome was now on a manticore, so him and Azazel flew in to disrupt their artillery, and with our Shatterstone ability, our forces of chaos were quickly through the walls. Azazel gave the rats plenty of lashes, threw down the Slicing Shard spell, which again, I must admit, that was pretty cool, and my chosen stood their ground against seemingly endless waves of rats, and my heroes fought valiantly. And soon enough, the ground was littered with rat corpses, and a close victory was ours. I'll take that. With this satisfying victory, we purged the Kislev lands of vermin, taking settlement upon settlement, ferociously slaying rats and rat ogres, claiming the Skaven cities in the name of Slaanesh. Throt even tried to buy his way out of it, but weird eyeball money cannot make up for what he stole from me, my dignity. So eventually we took the Hell Pit and tracked Throt down to the Temple of Heimkel. And he had nothing more than Skaven slave slingers and some other trash units at this point, so my Slaaneshi warriors quickly crushed the vermin, and Azazel murdered Throt. Victory was ours, and my dignity was restored. So despite my victory against the mutant rats and my vassalization of Norska, I was slightly displeased, because the realms of man were right on my doorstep. But besides the Brotherhood of the Bear, I hadn't really had the chance to dominate either Emperor or Tsarina. But like most things in life, fate has a way of making sure everyone gets what's coming to them. And we were finally faced with a whole lot of man to indulge in. Boris Ursus of the Ursun Revivalists. So Azazel moved further up north towards the Chaos Wastes to go say hello to Boris. Meanwhile, back in Kislev, I was sensing that something big was coming. The aggression from Boris got my Slaaneshi senses tingling. A man war was imminent. However, there was something in between us and the empires of man. Golg Man-Eater of the Man-Eaters. I was a little annoyed that they were between us and the Empire, so I declared war on the ogres, or as Azazel calls them,
Fat, ugly creatures.
and attacked Castle von Rauken, which was a bit of a rough fight, but thanks to my aspiring champions and unbreakable Slaanesh spawn, we got there in the end, claiming a Pyrrhic victory. Azazel had just about reached the first of Boris' settlements when I realized that I was right. My Slaaneshi senses hadn't been tingling for no reason, as he had another faction. Tsarina Katarin of the Ice Court. But this was actually kinda bad, because although Azazel was doing pretty well against Boris and his bears, Tsarina Katarin had a lot of armies. And over the course of a couple of turns, they took a lot of settlements, and I had like 0 defense. Valmir, my champion, who had just taken down Golg, had to flee because he ran into like 3 stacked Kislev armies. Hivold also had to retreat as he was about to be double-teamed, so I sent them back up towards the Tower of Kruk and Norskan territory because the Ice Court was closing in fast. And we kept fighting them off, having several big battles on the snowy tundra, but our armies got wore down. And we were becoming weaker and weaker for every turn. And slowly but surely, we were driven out of the Kislev lands, and I had to send both Volmir and Hivold out towards the Chaos Wastes, so now we were just about to... Right. we were kind of in a sticky situation, and not the good kind. Our three armies were separated from our starting lands by a Tsarina and an Emperor, both of them furious and war-hungry, but additionally at our backs we had a big bear riding a big bear. So it would appear that I got my wish, which can only mean one thing: let the degradation of man begin. The first item on our great plan of slaughter and seduction was to get back into the realms of man. And to do that, we needed to grind our way through the valley into Kislev, which currently was blocked by 3 Kislevite armies, one of which was led by Tsarina Katarine herself. But to do this, we needed a good army, with some strong units. Luckily, Azazel had been pretty busy building one. Azazel, Eglixus, Krum, Harold Hammerstorm, the Marquis of Masochism, aspiring champions, chosen of Slaanesh, and Chaos Knights. Like, look at this army. Pure death and sex appeal. Also, these Chaos Knights, by the way, pretty sure this is my favorite unit in the whole roster. Now the Kislevites had set up on the mountainside, awaiting their 2 reinforcing armies, but it didn't really matter, because this battle was an absolute slaughterfest. The Kislevites fell in numbers, either struck down by my infantry, ran down by my cavalry, or torn apart by my monsters. Perfection. And on the topic of perfection, Azazel went straight for Katarine, and after a quick tango, she was wounded, which also won us the battle. The pass into Kislev had finally spread its legs for us, and we could once again enter the realms of man. So we celebrated this by demolishing a few more armies, which actually pleased Slaanesh enough for Hivold to ascend to demonhood. I don't know if that's an improvement looks-wise, but, you know, I'll take it. However, now that we had faced Tsarina Katarine, she had looked upon us, and also seen our beauty. So the time for fighting was over, and the time for love could begin. Because we could now dominate and seduce Tsarina Katarine and her ice court, making them our vassal and subordinate.
Submit to me.
So with Tsarina Katarine thawing in my chambers, the two of us moved on Karl Franz and the Empire, fighting plenty of battles, pounding the Empire boys, smashing their war machines, and eventually we were faced with Pretty Boy himself. And although we had slowly been winning, we did have quite a few rough battles, as France had sent plenty of landship and steam tank stacks at us, but this one wasn't actually that bad. Azazel went straight in for France, having an epic airborne duel, which obviously ended with a wounded emperor, and the rest of his men were easily cleaned up by my army, giving us a satisfying, delicious victory. The war wasn't fully over though, so we kept pushing through, dishing out gifts of Slaanesh and death all the same, which attracted the attention of another fine lady. Elspeth von Draken.
All lives must end.
So now we were fighting both Wissenland and Nuln and the Empire. Thankfully, Boris was pretty busy killing his own kind, as I'd tasked Tsarina Katarine with defending us against the Orson revivalists. So we kept fighting, until eventually Karl Franz caved. Our beauty was simply too much, and he went down on his knees, pledging his allegiance and submission. So, I mean, my campaign was kinda finished at this point. France was dominated and at my disposal, so was Tsarina Katarine, the Empire was in shambles, basically at war with itself, and I was in the middle of it. But I'm a little ashamed to admit that despite being on the side of chaos, I was having fun. And although we hadn't actually hit any victory conditions yet, it all of a sudden started getting very, very hot. The endgame crisis was here, and the will of Hashut was apparently to be. So I figured, as long as I'm doing the endgame crisis, might as well knock off some other victory conditions. So I sent Hivold back up through Kislev and declared war on Malachi, as he occupied the last settlements needed for the short victory. Ironic, given his stature. And the Malachi war went pretty okay, besides this one battle that was an absolute even the Auto-resolve thought so, but we're not just a pretty face, you know. So we were a little smart with our spells, used Malachi's blimp against him, and somehow actually claimed an okay win. And as Highvold was taking care of Malachi, Azazel marched towards Chaos Dwarf territory, but we hadn't been gone for long before we were missed. And I got word that Elspeth von Draken also wanted to join my ecstatic legions. And of course I have room in my bed for the Dark Lady of Nome. When we got to the Chaos Dwarflands though, they weren't doing too good. Ungrim had one of their settlements and Zhao Ming had the other, leaving only one for me. So I took it, vassalized them, before heading over to Zhao, giving him and his army a good spanking and sending them back to Cathay bearing gifts of Slaanesh, which only left one settlement, so I declared war on Ungrim, which also meant that all my vassals naturally joined in, took it, and claimed the ultimate victory. Shortly after that, Highvold had wiped out what was left of Malachi, giving me the short victory, and seeing as Ungrim had plenty of settlements nearby, we took some of those, giving me the long victory. So now, because of me and my ecstatic legions, Karl Franz, Sanina Katharin, and Elspeth von Draken were not only all in bed with chaos, but they were also at war with Zhao Ming and Cathay, plus Ungrim. Boris had nearly been wiped out by Karl Franz himself, which left me to take his last settlement, where I subjugated him, you know, for degradation's sake. And the world of man was in complete disarray, all thanks to me. And you know what? I think we'll leave it there.
Submit to me.